If you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to grow a business, you have to decide you're just never going to give up. And that's all there is to it. He taught me right from the beginning, like he taught me how to sweep the floor right. And he taught me that we do things as well as we can as we're going along, right? And that was really my foundation in the industry. At the time, I think I was building about $7,000 a week. And I was proud of that number, right? Like that was a big number. But when I ran this number through my machine, it came out to $36,000 a week. Like that's just not enough to motivate me to figure out the next level. I'm the limiter in our sales, in our marketing. So my belief system about what our company's capacity is the biggest piece getting in the way of us moving forward. So I was like, I know what I need to do. We need to be targeting 10 million. This $5 million number is stupid. One of the quote is the riches is in the niches. And it was a terrifying moment. It really was. So we worked together to rebrand the company as Castile Kitchen and Bath, where we did everything to narrowing our focus to kitchen and bath work, deciding that we're going to be as good as we can be at this. Now we've grown to now running more than 250% of that, right? So like we way overshot the mark on that. Huge success in meeting those goals, which is really cool.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bass Track podcast. I'm your host, Billy Basuni. I'm joined by Forrest Castile today. Forrest is the founder of Castile Kitchen and Bath and also an emerging voice and thought leader for the design build movement. Forrest has spent over 2 decades delivering high-end renovations in the Eugene, Oregon market, and more recently, he's turning his focus towards shaping the industry itself. Forrest, thanks for joining me today. How's it going?
Good, Billy. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Before we dive into your new design build consulting journey, I'd like to set the stage for the audience. Can you tell us a bit about Castile Kitchen and Bath, how it got started, what kind of work you've been doing over the past 2 decades?
Yeah, thank you. And so that can be a long story or a short story. But I started 28 years ago, in a pickup truck and kind of what happened was I was working in restaurants at the time, and a buddy of mine was doing some work on his house and wanted me to come help, and I was his buddy in the restaurant business. And so he invited me to come on the weekend and work, and he was going to pay me 15 bucks an hour or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, extra cash. And I showed up and it was fine, kind of learning how to paint or whatever. But then I remember the time when the contractor friend rolled up on the house, right? And he was in this pickup with a rack on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. I want to be like that someday, right? And so, but I hit it off with this contractor guy and started working with him part time. And he's one of those guys where, in the industry is hard because there's this huge segment of the industry that has this attitude of, how can we do it for cheaper, or looks good enough for my house, or just kind of this low standard attitude. And this guy was not that. He was the total opposite. And he taught me right from the beginning, like he taught me how to sweep the floor right. And he taught me that we do things as well as we can as we're going along, right? This is our opportunity to do it as well as we can. And that was really my foundation in the industry, was like, no, we do this just as well as we can. And that had a really long lasting and significant impact on me. But then, and I was a kid, right? I was in my 20s. I worked with this guy for a couple of years. And then because I was in my 20s, it didn't take me long to like know everything about the industry, right? So I believed that, like, oh my gosh, if he can do this, I can do this, right? A couple of years in, I'm like, oh, I got this, right? And so I approached him with a lot of arrogance early on. But what I noticed in myself is this other piece that balanced the arrogance. I've always had this piece in me that is committed, right? And so I'd approach something with this can-do attitude, and then when I got in over my head, I was committed. And so I was like, well, I'm going to bring in the resources. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to do everything I need to do to be able to do what I said I was going to do. And that was kind of the foundational roots of this company, was this arrogance combined with this stubborn stick-to-itiveness and follow through. And we grew really fast because of that, right? Because I was willing to take on the risk and do the stuff. And then, like, okay, now I got to figure out how to get it done, right? And so I grew really fast, developed really fast as a human and as a craftsman. And back in the day, I like to think I was a pretty good carpenter. But what happened was I started growing. I started bringing in helpers and doing more work, and that was pretty good. Um, but there was a real turning point for me in my career where I was working on my own house, and I was doing kind of a finicky cut with a table saw. And maybe it was that arrogance coming back in again. But I was doing this finicky cut with the table saw, and I lost control of the cut, and I cut off some of my fingers. And I'm still, they did their best patching me back up. I'm still missing a chunk. But in the meantime, what had happened was I was a musician at the time, right? I played in bands locally and did some of that stuff. And so then it cut off my fingers. And so I got kind of depressed, and there was pain pills, and there was this like month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I don't even know, like maybe even a longer period where I was just kind of out of the game. But we had a lot of work to do, and my team really stepped up, right? The people that were working for me really stepped up and kind of started doing the work. But it was an interesting turning point, right? Because before that, I'd been wearing the tools, proud of my work, really involved in the work on a day-to-day basis. When I got hurt, it was kind of a natural or a forced step back, and I started seeing things a little bit differently. And so as I was starting to get back into the game, my hand was still messed up, and my soul was a little messed up. But I started spending more of my time meeting with clients and setting up the next jobs, ordering materials and getting them staged for the team. I wasn't wearing tools at all. And all of a sudden, and what I saw, and it was kind of a humbling moment. But what I saw was that the clients were happier, the team was happier, we were making more money, the work was better, right? And all of a sudden things started clicking, things started making sense when I stopped doing the work, right? I was like kind of forced out of the bucket, if you will, where it's like, a lot of people, they stay in their career, they stay in this place for decades where they can't figure out how to get out of the tools. And so I kind of think of this moment when I hurt myself as like, and I've got a sense of spirituality to me, but I almost feel like the universe kind of kicked me out of my groove, right? It was like, hey, no choice, dude. Like you're doing something different. And my perspective changed and everything changed. And then kind of in the same zone, my wife and I met with a retirement specialist, and we had some credit card debt or whatever, but my wife, I was always just kind of hand to mouth and never really had a big picture. My wife is a much more big picture thinker than I am. We went to this financial advisor with the idea of like, hey, we might retire someday. What does it mean to retire? Right. And for me, I was kind of a punk kid. It was a new idea. But we met with this financial advisor, and it was a weird moment, Billy, because we sat down and she was a little condescending, right? She turned and looked at us. She said, well, the first thing you need to do is get out of credit card debt and then come back and see me. And for me, my attitude, I got a little bit ticked. I was like, wait a minute, like we came here, I'm trying to learn something from you. I said, look, honestly, like the idea of getting out of debt isn't going to inspire me. Like that's enough to motivate me to figure out the next level. I said, what I want to know is what does it take to build a life, and what does it take to be able to retire? Right. And she saw the look, she saw the intensity in me where I was mad, and I was kind of I was like, no, take me seriously.
You found
Right.
your passion.
And yeah, right. Yeah. So she turned around, she did a bunch of tippy tappy on her adding machine, and she asked a bunch of questions about like how we live and that kind of stuff. And then she came back and she said, okay, I've got this number for you. This is what you need to start making if you want to retire. Right. And it was a gulper. It was a big number at the time. But so I took this number back to and I was like, okay, close it up, took it back to my desk. And I ran this number through the construction company, right? To like, what is the for this income, what does my sales model need to look like? And at the time, I think I was building about $7,000 a week. And I was proud of that number, right? Like that was a big number. But when I ran this number through my machine, it came out to $36,000 a week. And I was like, holy crap. Okay. I'm selling seven a week. I need to sell 36,000 a week to get where I want to go. Oh my gosh. All right. So when I did it, I took these yellow sticky notes. I put one, on one yellow sticky note, I wrote down 36,000 a week, and I put that on the inside of my cabinet above my desk, and I closed it. Right. And I took another yellow sticky note and I wrote 18,000 a week, and I put that on my monitor. Right. Cause I was like, I don't even know, but I'm going to start here, cut it in half. This is a much more approachable number. And so I started working on it. I was like, okay, what does it mean to do this? And I reached a level, and I don't remember the exact level, but I think it was somewhere in like the 14, 18,000 a week number where I hit that level. And what I realized, Billy, is that with what I know now, the resources I have, what I know now, my current ability level, I'm not able to do better than this. Right. And that was a hard moment, right? It was a real genuine assessment. I wasn't trying to be overly humble. I wasn't trying to sell myself short. I just took stock of what I was able to do. And I was like, this is about it. Like I'm not able to do better than this. And so that's when I reached out and I started consulting with mentors, and I started, okay, what do I need to know? What are my tools? Bring in more resources. And so I worked with kind of a series of coaches and mentors over that period of time. Somewhere in there, I asked my wife to come join with the business because we'd reached that level where we had more of a need for inputs and getting stuff done than we had the ability to pay people to do it. So she came working for nothing, right? And so I started taking on the financials and the marketing and projections and that kind of stuff. And she's really smart at that stuff. But then together, and because she's so much hungrier than I am, and she's got these like she just kind of a different class person, a higher class person than I am. She had this big reach where she was like, if we can do this, we can do so much more. And I believed her. And so we worked together to rebrand the company as Castile Kitchen and Bath, coming from Castile Construction, where we did everything, to narrowing our focus to kitchen and bath work, deciding that we're going to be as good as we can be at this. That was kind of my mentor's original mission, was like, do this as well as you can. And really started reaching and building and growing, focusing on the marketing, focusing on the team, focusing on the SOPs, focusing on how we do what we do, and build the company up to what it is today. Now she's kind of moved on. She's taking on the showroom side of things. It's a separate business now. It's a sister company called Jennifer James Showroom, where she's selling products and services to other contractors and then direct to consumers, and also doing the work of supplying products for this company. But now we've grown to that level, and that 40,000 a week number that I was targeting, we're now running more than 250% of that, right? So like we way overshot the mark on that. Huge success in meeting those goals, which is really, really cool. But I remember it started at, holy cow, that number's impossible. And then we kind of decided that we were going to make the impossible possible by just setting the targets, taking the steps.
That's amazing. Thank you for that the background short story summary of what you've been through over the last 25 years. Tell me, what was the difference maker between, you growing from, what was it, 7 to 18, and then, that meeting that threshold, and then from there reaching the 40K a week? Was it all just in that mentorship, you would say? Like what were the, if someone really was at that stage right now where they're like, oh, this is the limit that I can do, what advice can you give to those folks that want to, you know, push that envelope?
Yeah, cool, man. Well, so I think there's a couple different areas to it, but one, I think in terms of whack-a-mole, right? Where our company, we've identified three main segments of our company. We've got the sales, we've got the design, and we've got the production, right? And so as we're growing a company, those things are never truly in balance. There's always something out of balance, right? We're either struggling in sales, struggling in design, or struggling in production, not necessarily because we're failing or falling back, but because as we're growing, there's one portion of the company that's not keeping up with the growth, right? So if we sell too much, then the designers are having a hard time keeping
Right,
up.
right.
If we're selling and designing a bunch, then production's having a hard time keeping up. And so part of the idea has been to kind of rotate our focus to whichever portion is the weak link at that given point in time, not because they're not able to keep up, but because they need to learn new tricks or we need to grow somebody or whatever needs to happen. So kind of keeping an eye on those three aspects of the company and deciding which one needs the most work right now. Right. And so that's been a huge piece of it. And then just focusing on it, like, okay, we're struggling in production. Let's get in there and strategize and make decisions. And, for anybody that's been in business long enough, there's a couple principles to staying in business that you really need to know. One is that you can never give up. Right. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to grow a business, you have to decide you're just never going to give up. And that's all there is to it. Right. When things get hard, you just keep looking for a new way, no matter what happens. Right. And there's always a way if you keep at it.
Right,
Right.
right.
Uh,
Keep taking
so
action,
then,
right?
yep. Well, so then we look at, okay, so let's say production isn't keeping up. We know we're not going to give up. Now we start strategizing. What are our opportunities? What are our options? How do we improve the situation? Do we need to bring in somebody new to kind of show us a different way of approaching it? Do we need to restructure the model? Do we need to? And some of the stuff has been just silly little tweaks where, like, I remember we were struggling with our completion of projects, right? And we have this format for completing projects where we have a completion list format that we do before the project ends. Everybody signs it, and it wasn't work, and the end of the project was still dragging on. And just the funniest little tweak, when I looked at this list and I looked at how they were using this list, they were crossing things out and then writing new things in, right? And I was like, this is a mess. It's not, no wonder they can't get this done well. It's not structured. I said, let's add check boxes to the list.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of crossing things out, we can't read it anymore.
You're just
We just put check boxes on the list and it changed everything. All of a sudden, like just a stupid little thing. So it didn't need a whole system revamp. It just needed this one little tweak
yeah.
to make it actually function the way that it was supposed to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
I
awesome.
remember another time in production, we moved our production team off site. And I knew as soon as we moved them off site, I knew it was going to cost us somehow, right? This is a big change. What's going to be the impact? I don't know yet, but I'm going to watch for it. And then it wasn't 3, 4 months later that we started seeing margins and client satisfaction dipping, right? So we're like, oh, wow, our gross margins are coming down a couple points. Our client satisfaction isn't the same. People are frustrated. There's more mistakes is the reason for it. Okay, what's going on? And I was like, wait a minute. We moved them off site. I knew there was going to be an impact. This has got to be it. So then we got in there like, what do we need to do? And then we're like, well, let's meet once a week and talk about every project so we don't forget about anything. Right. So then production comes back here to the main office once a week for an hour. We spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about each project. Right. How are they doing? What's the win? What's the struggle? And that way, and then everybody's thinking about the project. So the designers are thinking, hey, remember, there's this weird detail. Don't forget it, right? And production's talking about something, and all of a sudden there's that alignment again. And then whoop, the margins came up, the client satisfaction came up.
Yeah.
And so sometimes kind of you focus on where the struggle is and then strategize what do we need to do differently. Don't keep doing the same thing or more of it. What needs to change for this to be successful? And then start making those decisions. And where I see people really struggling in this area is the fear of making a decision, right?
Mm.
Where it's like, oh, it's a big decision. We need to have big meetings about it. We need to make sure it's the right decision. And my encouragement there is don't do that. Just make the best decision you can and then be willing to pivot as you need to going forward, right? So you need to make a decision and then see the consequences and then make a new decision, see the consequences and keep going like that. And that's what it takes to keep things going forward. The other piece though, Billy, is focusing on sales. And that's what one of my first mentors taught me was focus on sales and the rest is going to follow. Right. And so
Yeah.
keeping that at the front where it's like, okay, priority number one, bring in new business, bring in new business, bring in new business and keep that at the forefront. We're not like, and it slips sometimes, right? We get distracted. We're doing other stuff. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, it's not going so good. Right. And then nope, focus on sales, get out there, outbound calls, whatever you got to do to keep the sales going. So kind of remembering the whack-a-mole of the three components in the company combined with, okay, go focus on sales, go focus on sales.
I love that. Its timing is crazy perfect because I literally just had a call with my mentor this morning, and that was absolutely the one thing he drilled down on me was you got to focus on your sales. Don't worry about all this back end stuff and process optimization. You're not there yet, Billy. Like focus on what's gonna get you to the next step faster. So
Yeah.
man, the timing there. I want to ask, did your shift in your niche, right? Because before you were telling that Castile was the general contractor company, you shifting that into a more targeted niche, more specific niche, because you guys now focus mainly on just kitchen and bathroom modeling. Did that have an impact to the growth as well?
Oh, it's been huge. Yeah. So, in one of my mentors, one of the quote is the riches is in the niches, right?
I love that. I'm gonna take that
Yeah.
for
And so, and it was a terrifying moment. It really was. It was a super scary leap of faith where we were doing everything. We were hungry for everything. But in an effort to try to be the best we could, what we recognized is that you can't do everything and be the best at it. That's just not feasible, right? It's kind of the opposite. And so we looked at our community, we looked at our market, and we were like, well, will this market support a company like ours just doing kitchens and bathrooms? I don't know, right? But that's where the passion was. Like that's where we were really enjoying the work the most. That's where we felt like we were delivering an exceptional service, right? Where because of our care for details, like my original contractor guy that I worked with taught me, like do it as well as you can. That really shines when you get into kitchen and bath work. When you're doing decks or sheetrock or whatever that stuff is, it's not so much the priority. That it's more of a commodity when you get into those things. Kitchens and bathrooms are much less of a commodity. There's still people that treat it that way, but there's so much of the client specific needs that you need to focus on the communication, the all the finicky little details that really come to life in kitchens and bathrooms. So we're like, well, this is where we're strong. Let's go for it. So we dove in. And we were still doing for a while. We did kitchens and baths and outdoor spaces because I had such a passion for decks. And that we had this one deck project, and it was $120,000 deck project all the way around a house. By the end of this project, we were $100,000 in debt because it just went so poorly. Like, and I'm sure it was all on me. Like my management of the team wasn't where it needed to be, and we didn't have the right players in place, right? But remember that piece of like, we're gonna finish this, we're gonna do it no matter what it takes, right? And we did, and we tapped out every last. I remember the last check was like a $1,900 check to get this thing done. It was our last $1,900. We were like, oh man, this hurts so bad, but we're doing the right thing. We're getting this thing done. We have to, and we did. We got the deck done, and then after the deck was done, we were done. We were done crying about the whole thing. We sat down and we were like, let's drop it. Like let's just drop the outdoor spaces, focus on kitchens and bathroom. This thing is holding us back now too, right? This piece that we really wanted to do is part of what's holding us back. Let's get real, focus on where we're good at things. And then in the kitchen bath thing, there's so much more opportunity for a solid margin because it's not a commodity. And then part of the sales process, and this is what's when we talk about focusing on sales, shifting our model from a bid build model to a design build model changed everything because instead of being in a price competitive market, all of a sudden we were in a delivery competitive market, and that shifted everything again.
awesome. This is a great pivot into our conversation here. Do you want to shift gears into that, right? We talked about your craftsmanship and your legacy behind Castile Kitchen and Bath. but you're also stepping into a new chapter, right? You mentioned the desire to make bigger impacts across the industry, specifically design build industry, and helping guide the next generation of remodelers. Talk about that. What's this new consulting business you're starting up, and what moment really sparked the shift towards that mentorship and consulting?
Thanks, Billy. And there's a lot of pieces to it, and it's hard to it's hard to really understand the whole thing or what's guiding me in this direction. Part of it, I think, is my extensive working with mentors for my growth,
Mm,
right? And how significant the impact has been on my life working with, the idea of like having somebody to mentor me, having a coach, having that next resource that knows more, putting myself in a position to be working with somebody that just knows more than me, right? And how that's moved me forward in such a big way. There's also the relationships that are built there where, and I don't know if you've done this, but like when you spend time working with the right kinds of mentors, there's such a deep personalization to the work where in order to move forward, you got to clean up some bullshit, right? Because it's our own head trash and our own limiting beliefs that hold us back, right? But in the process of working with really, really smart, really kind coaches, for me anyways, there's kind of a falling in love that happens with those people, right? And so, and in that was there's a like almost like a falling in love with myself too, where it's like I see that capacity in myself, right? I see that love for other people in myself, and I want more of that, right? I want to explore that piece of me, what it means to really love on other people, care for other people, kind of give people a hand up through some of their stuff, or help people clean up some of their path, whatever it takes to help people move forward, and like so like falling in love with people moving forward, right? And so, like with my team here, that's been my position for quite a while, where it's like somebody coming in, they've got this stuff in the way of their success. They and I don't know if you've seen this, but for me, it's not normally that somebody needs more tools to be successful. It's normally that people need to remove barriers to move towards success, right? And so kind of seeing people come in and being able to, through my work, being able to see their barriers or their struggles and kind of help them get some of that stuff out of the way, and then watching them learn to grow and thrive is so rewarding for me. And then having part of it also is having the language, right? Having the ability to communicate really deeply with people about things that matter and how to move forward with the right life, right? So the what's the word I'm looking for the anyways, but the idea of being able to communicate really well with people and understand them on a deep level in order to move them forward. So part of it's that kind of the vocabulary is the word I was looking
mhm,
for. Learning the vocabulary of growth, right? And
yeah.
being able to share that with other people. But then one of the biggest things that happened for me, and this was about 5 years ago, NARI, or the National Association for the Remodeling Industry, reached out to me about potentially teaching a certification course for them. And for me, because I love that kind of stuff, I've been teaching for years in other markets. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And so I started teaching their certified kitchen bath remodeler class, and really liked that. And then it was a year or two later that they came back. My friend at NARI came back to me and said, "Hey, we're developing a new certification. I really like your style. Would you be willing to be on the board to develop this new certification for NARI?"
Mm,
Right? Yeah, put me in, right? And it was supposed to be a 1 year program putting together this new certification. And the so she brought together my friend at NARI brought together this team of 8 people across the country, these really high level professionals in this industry. And what was supposed to be a 1 year program working weekly together to develop this new certification, it took us 3.5 years to put this thing together, just because of the design build model is so complex, and kitchen and bath, like all like residential remodeling design is such a complex beast because we're working with vendors and clients and design work and products and a constantly evolving market and all this stuff. And it's like, wow, this is a really deep topic. So it took us 3.5 years to put this thing together. But the side effect of this 3.5 years is that this team and I got really, really close, right? This team of people developing the certification got really, really close. And so we started meeting monthly. We called it the parking lot group. Started meeting monthly just to develop our own businesses, because we're like, wow, we all know a whole lot, but we don't all know the same stuff, right? So let's get together and share and learn and grow. And there was so much value in that. And so, and in doing that, there's been a lot of one-on-one moments where there's been coaching each other and developing each other. But one of the things that I saw as we were moving along is the strength of this team, right? And it wasn't just a team. We in this industry, we run into people that huff and puff, or there's a lot of ego, that kind of thing. Nobody on this team had this, and I think that's why they were selected for this certification by our person at NARI, because of that humble approach and that genuineness, combined with like the industry knowledge and the communication construction and like all these pieces. So all of a sudden we were shoulder to shoulder with 8 other high level professionals that have the same mindset, right? The same growth mindset and humility and intention to do as well as it can be done, the human part of it. And so as we started talking, we realized that we also had a lot that we could deliver to the rest of our design build community, both in specific to the industry, but also in similar industries where there's entrepreneurs or team builders who are trying to grow companies. Like we have a lot to offer, we have a lot to get back, and so we're in the middle of kind of formatting what it's going to look like to develop a coaching or a sorry, Billy, let
Mentorship
me
consulting.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, so we're in the beginning stages of formatting what it's going to look like to have a consulting firm that specializes in not just design build companies, but other firms that are doing similar types of work, but on a really human level, by people who have already been through all of this stuff and know how to move you forward through the industry, right? So people like me, back when I was like, gulp, this is as far as I can go
Mm,
with what I know now, taking because there's those people just like us all over the country that are really really good people that want to do a great job but have reached the limit of their ability,
right.
and so the idea of reaching back and helping pull these for people forward also to help build up this industry into what we think it can be.
So are your ideal mentees, are you talking about like maybe targeting remodelers looking to scale or near contractors or just individual people who want to, learn more about business? Like what is that target market look like?
I think it's a little bit of everything, right? But there's these funny plateaus in the remodeling business, right? There's one that's in like the 250,000 a year. That's kind of the beginning stages of, hey, you're starting to develop a team and you're starting to learn how to sell things, right? You're kind of in the beginning stages of going beyond. I don't know. I'm just trying to take whatever I can get and survive, right? Getting from that 250,000 up to about 1 million is a big leap and a big challenge, right? You just need to learn new tricks in order to get there. And then getting from that million to about 3 million is a really big leap, right? And that million to 3 million is really hard because you need all this revenue to make it happen. And if you're bidding jobs and you're doing half up front and half on completion, the growth will wipe you right out of business because you don't have the cash flow to manage it, right? And so kind of teaching cash flow principles and how to effectively manage this growth from 1 to 3 million is really really challenging. But then the next plateau is 3 to 5 million. Getting from that 3 million to $5 million zone has its own new set of challenges. And I'm like right in there right now. I'm like pulling the pieces together. It's like, oh, okay, I've mastered this. Oh, now I've got this other piece getting to that 5 million zone. But then some of the people in our group have already gone from the 5 million to the 10 million zone, right? And that's not me. I can't teach that because I haven't done that yet. I can definitely teach the 1 to 3, and that's where I'm probably strongest is that $1 to $3 million zone. The 3 to 5, I'll be there pretty soon. But the people on our team have already been through all of this stuff and are CEOs and CFOs of these bigger companies. And they're pulling me forward, right? But so we have this cool ability to offer um, a a consulting delivery to people that are trying to get from just about whatever level they're at to the next level.
Okay. And would this mentorship really focus around like a bid, design build, like type of like companies that you're helping out, or is it kind of wider than that? Is it broader?
Yeah, good question. And it's actually a really challenging question because, I think getting it like that first couple of lifts where you're getting from 250,000 to 1 million, um, working with specialty contractors, that's possible to get specialty contractors up to that level where you're plumber, electrician, or finished carpenter or whatever that is. That's okay. My belief is that it's going to be really challenging to accelerate up into the next levels if you're in a bid build process because it's a commodified delivery, right? Where it's price competitive. And so you just kind of end up tapping out where it's hard to deliver at a high level, be financially successful and keep growing at that level if you're doing bids because of the way the competitive portion of the market works. So, but moving into design build is what I think opens up the doors to being able to level up into those higher levels of doing this. And it's just because it's a different sales model completely. It's not like let me sell based on price, let me sell based on features. Instead, it's let me sell based on our ability to solve your problem uniquely in the way that best solves it for you. Right. So we move from bid build into okay, now we're problem solvers, and your particular problem needs somebody at our level to be able to solve it correctly.
Okay. Yeah, for our listeners who aren't quite familiar with the difference between design build and design bid build and the advantages versus disadvantages, could you maybe just go over the summary and take us through, your expertise there a little bit?
Yeah. Do we have time for a
We
history
can
lesson?
we can Keep it as short as you can because we are running a bit out of
Okay.
time.
Yeah. So, yeah, but all the history aside, and I can send you an article later if you want to see how the Great Depression, World War II, and all those things impacted this industry and why we went into this bid build process. It's a really cool story, actually. But the essence of it is bid build is when we say, hey, and there's a few different complications in bid because everybody uses the word a little bit differently, right? It's kind of an ill-defined term, and people use these weird pricing terms like bid, estimate, quote, right? And they're all a little different, but none of them really fit right. But for me, when I approach this from the design build perspective, I think of a bid as something that's really useful in like big government project where we have the designs are figured out into every detail, specifications are all delineated, tolerances are all delineated. That way we can actually be comparing apples to apples pricing wise. And in residential work, it's so rare that we're actually going to have those pieces in place, right? So people think I'm going to get a bid for this kitchen, but they don't have plans. They don't have specifications. They don't have anything figured out yet. So they bring people out. They bring three contractors out because you're supposed to get three bids. They meet with three different people that all have their own approaches. And then people are generally left with these three different bids on the table, and they're all different. They don't make sense of it. And they're not experts in the field. They just want a kitchen. So they don't even know how to read these things. And there's not enough detail in any of them to even make any decisions, right? And so what they do with a kitchen bid is they'll say, well, I don't want to have a bad job, so I'm going to throw out the low one. I don't want to get taken advantage of, so I'm going to throw out the high one, which means I'm just left with the middle one without any idea what I'm actually going to get. Right. And that's how bids in kitchen and bathroom remodels generally work. And sometimes there's more information, sometimes there's less, but nobody's taken the time to figure out the project yet. So the pricing is really kind of amorphous or not connected to any reality, right? It's a guess. Design build is a little bit different. With a design build firm, what's happening is the design build team is coming and meeting with the client. We call it a consultation and working to fully understand the client's, we call it a unique problem, right? We don't tell the clients it's a unique problem because we don't feel like they're a problem, right? But for us, it's like, what exactly is the problem? And the problem is composed of three main components. One is how much work needs to be done to come up with a satisfactory result, right? The second component is what kinds of things do you like, right? Because a fiberglass shower is way different than a tile shower and they have totally different pricing structures, right? And then the other piece is what's your investment capacity, right? And we can't design a project appropriately without understanding the investment capacity correctly, right? So the idea is we meet with clients and we need to understand how those three components work for our clients and give them good feedback on this, right? Because everybody we meet with is like, hey, I want this most amazing, beautiful kitchen and I've got $20,000 ready saved up and I'm ready to go, right? And we're like, that's a lot of money, but it's not going to do it, right? So there's some education that has to come in with like trying to clarify like what you can actually expect. But so the whole point of the initial consultation in a design build process is kind of a mutual interview to determine if we're going to have value for you and if we should be working together at all. But the idea of we're going to have value for you is can we solve the problem in a way that you're going to find value in?
Right, right,
And sometimes it's yes and sometimes it's no, and that's fine.
right,
But if it's yes, then we need to demonstrate to our client that we're uniquely suited to solve their problem in a way that they're going to find value in, right? So we have to go through all this stuff to show them, hey, we haven't solved the problem yet because that's a lot of work and it costs money to solve the problem. But guess what? We can. And I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to show you why we think we can. And then we go through this whole design process, figuring out what the right solution is for them, including the layout, the selections, specificate like all that, figuring everything out. And then the pricing, but going through a good design process means we're able to show up and we're able to show you exactly what we're going to do and exactly what it's going to cost. And then we can decide, does this work or does it not? And if it does work, great, pull the trigger and away we go. If it doesn't work very often, there's like, okay, well, let's go adjust things a little bit. We lower some of your selections or, adjust things a little bit to make it, to come up with just the right fit or just the right solution for you. And then once we've got it all figured out, okay, then we pull the trigger, start ordering materials, get everything ready to go so we can have an exceptional delivery.
right, right. No, I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a large amount of inefficiencies in construction and scope gaps, right, that are caused by these fractured handoffs, if you will. And design build really helps close that loop, right? And so, I mean, I'm seeing in a lot of projects that I've been involved with as well. We're always, for the most part, doing the larger scopes of design build nowadays, is because it makes more sense to less, like I said, inefficiencies and scope gaps that really cause a huge headache, especially if you're already in construction, right? So great, I love it. Love everything you're doing. You've shared a lot about obviously some challenges, some in the early days, but since then you're really taken off. You've been able to exceed expectations and go above and beyond the goals that were set on you. What are some challenges that you're actually facing right now, though, either in the Castile Kitchen and Bath, or you starting your consulting business?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Billy. Well, right now, we talk about whack-a-mole and we're succeeding greatly this year over last year. It's still not where I want us to be. And so again,
And is this
kind
is
of
this
back to
for
basics.
Castile, or is this for the
Yeah,
new?
on the
Okay,
Castile, thank
yeah.
you. It's kind of back to basics, right? Where it's like focus on the sales, focus on the sales. But one of the bigger barriers that we ran into with focusing on the sales was our marketing. And we do a really good job with the marketing. But so I had this funny moment. And in the consulting business, we teach a tool. It's called the 90-second shift. The idea being, you ever have a really good idea where you're like, oh, I really need to do this, right? And then you don't really do anything about it. And like, and a year later, you're like, I still need to do this. I didn't do it. With the 90-second shift, we teach that if you have a really good idea about something you need to be doing, you need to do something within the next 90 seconds to take you one step in that direction for it to become a reality. Right. And so I had one of those moments where I was like, I've got it. I'm the limiter in our sales, in our marketing. So my belief system about what our company's capacity is the biggest piece getting in the way of us moving forward because I'm wrestling so hard to get to this $5 million number, right? So I'm projecting all this tension and all this like urgency around this number. And I had this moment where I was like, oh crap, I'm the problem, right? And so,
You're looking at yourself in the mirror. You're like, oh, there it is.
yeah. Yeah, no. So I was like, I know what I need to do. We need to be targeting 10 million. This $5 million number is stupid. There's no reason we can't get to this $10 million number. It's just in my head, whatever the problem is. So the 90-second shift, I was like, I got to do something right now. So I called my marketer. It was like 8:30 at night. She answered the phone. She's like, what? Right? I said, I just need to get it out there. I know we're under a lot of pressure. We're trying to get to this $5 million number. I've got the solution, right? She's like, what's the solution? I said, we're going for 10. And she's like, what?
Wait, give us the logic behind that.
Yeah.
How is that the solution?
Well, the idea was to remove those barriers, to say, hey,
Uh,
I'm the barrier. Whatever's going on with me is the barrier. I've got this tension around this number.
uh,
Though I changed my belief in the moment to not only is this number totally possible and within reach,
uh,
it's easy.
it's a
It's
mindset
easy.
shift. It was a mindset shift.
Yeah, a mindset shift. And I was like, we then, and so then we had the next day we had a strategy marketing meeting, the marketing and sales and me. We sat down. We're like, hey, guess what, guys? We got news. We're going for 10 million, right? They're like, what? And but we reframed the conversation. Instead of how do we push to 5 million, we reframed the conversation to what are the barriers between us and this natural $10 million number, right? So we changed the assumption from it's real hard to get to 5 to it's really easy to get to 10. We just got to remove the barriers, right? The same way we talk about coaching people coming in, like remove the barriers, remove the barriers. And so we sat down and well, what are the barriers? What's between us and this $10 million number? And we boiled it down to 5 key ideas that we had as barriers. One was reaching the people that want what we do, right? Oh, there's a barrier. Like we have a barrier between us and the people that are really going to value what we do. Not all of them, but a lot of the people that are really going to value what we do. How do we remove that barrier? Right. We have a barrier in closing sales. Like our closing ratio isn't where it needs to be. And so we have a barrier there in our ability to onboard the right kinds of clients because we're making missteps in the sales call, right? So we went through this list and okay, what barriers do we need to remove? And then we set up these weekly intensive strategy meetings where like, okay, well, 1 hour we're tackling this barrier. We're on the third one, I think, this coming week. We're like, okay, what do we need to do to get this crap out of our way? Whatever this barrier between us and the success that we know this company is capable of, what we need to do to get that barrier out of the way. So that's been one of the bigger challenges that we've run into, I
So,
guess.
so that's a work in progress. It sounds like, to tackle all those
Yeah, you
five
got it.
barriers that you got. That's amazing. It started with that mental shift, knowing that there's a limiting belief there that you just get out of the way. But I love
Yeah.
that you doubled what your goal was, and that was, I'm sure your whole team was having a what the, wait
No, of course
moment.
my team thinks I'm crazy, right? But once I explained it, they got it. They were like, "Oh crap, you're right." Like this is totally within reach. We just have all this garbage in the way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, first, unfortunately, we are out of time. I've had such a fantastic conversation with you. Thank you for sharing your experience, your thought process, your dedication to making a change in the industry. It's all been really impressive. So thank you so much for joining. For anyone who wants to connect with you or learn more about what you do with Castile Kitchen and Bath or your upcoming consulting business, what's the best place they can reach out to you?
Yeah, so our website, www.castilecitchenandbath.com. And there's an access point on there. Also, my email is Forrest with two R's at CastileKB.com. That's CastileKB like kitchen bath.com, and that'll take you right to me. And I love talking to people about this stuff, so don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Make sure I'll link it below as well. Well, thank you guys again for joining for it. And Boris, thank you again. It's been so insightful and had such a great conversation with you.
Thank you. And I'd like to say one more thing, Billy, and if you have to cut it out, I understand. And this isn't an afterthought. It's been on my mind all the way through this conversation. And I just want to say it super clearly so everybody can understand it. Um, None of this would have been possible without my beautiful, amazing wife, Jen. And I just want to make sure that we claim that and get that out there as the reality. I didn't really do this. Like, she was the driving force behind all this. And I did everything I could to keep up, but really compliments to her on building this whole thing.
Well, I will absolutely make sure to keep that in there, Boris. Thank you for sharing that.
All right.